welcome back to my channel. My name is Mariah and today I want to talk about my university experience. So I recently graduated from the University of Hertfordshire, hence the jumper, where I studied sport and science the year abroad. But before I went to the University of Hertfordshire, I originally studied at the University of Kent and I was based on their Medway campus. So I'm going to get into that first. As you can tell from the title, I decided to transfer. I will do a separate video on the process I went through to transfer, so you can look out for that. Okay, so in 2016, I decided to enroll at the University of Kent. What initially attracted me to the university was their facilities for my course and the level of teaching I heard they provided, and I hadn't heard anything bad from the people who I knew that previously been there. So I was like, why not? When I went to visit it, the weather was looking nice, the campus was looking that. I was like, the scene was set. I was meant to be there. So come to September, I go move in. I was based in Medway on their Medway campus, so that's between Chatham and Gillingham. And I was living in Liberty Living, which is about a 25-minute walk away from the campus. But when I got there pretty early on, I knew the place wasn't for me. I didn't feel like, not that I belonged there, but it just wasn't for me. So I really knew that I wanted to leave. But instead of just upping and leaving, I wanted to give it some time to see, like, maybe I can get past it and get past it for the next 2 years. So in doing so, obviously I didn't get past it, I transferred. But when it came to deciding to transfer, I wrote up a list of pros and cons to myself, thinking pros, that why I should stay at Kent and is it really worth going through the hassle of leaving, and the cons of I could regret these things if I don't leave now. So I've got a list here of my pros and cons. My first pro is the group of friends I've made. So I not only was I worried that I made great friends and we'd lose connections, but the fact that I was happy that I made such great friends, because they were keeping me happy and not making me want to leave instantly, even though I did spend a lot of time going back and forth to London because I couldn't hack it. So yeah, but the friends, I had one of my friends were living with me. We became friends before we even moved into uni. We were talking on a group chat, got on very well, decided we were basically family, decided we were going to live together. Our rooms were next to each other, constantly in our room. Great friends, still friends today. Another friend, he was on the other campus. I knew him from before, and he would let me stay with him on the weekends. That was great, because then I got a slight social life. But that was also a pro and also a con, because sometimes I just didn't want to feel like a burden to them, because I was constantly depending on them to keep me happy. So it kind of goes on both sides of the list. Another pro as to why I wanted to stay at Kent was that I really love my course. The modules really suited me. That's also another reason I forgot to mention as to why I chose to study there. I kind of felt like other universities, when they offer my course, they have modules that are more tailored to people who want to go into coaching, and I know that was something I don't want to do, and I knew it from the jump that I didn't want to do it. So having modules that tailored more to the sciencey, exercise, health science side of things is just something that I was like, this makes sense. Why would I go down the road of studying something more tailored to coaching if that's not what I want to do? And the last one was that I was receiving academic excellence funding. So basically, because I enrolled at the university and I had 3 distinction stars when I enrolled, I was eligible for funding each year. So I got a certain amount of money, and all I had to do to keep getting the certain amount of money was make sure I got a 2-1 every year. And I was like, no brainer. Why would I give up free money? You know what I mean? Like, if you have to pay it back, why am I going to give it up? But yeah, gave it up. So that was a big thing of mine. But onto the cons. The big thing was everybody around me was offered a study abroad year for their course, but I wasn't. I was aware of this when I enrolled. However, I was unaware of how many other people were eligible for this, and how all of my friends, other than the ones on my course, got this option. And that I knew when it came to 3rd year, I would want them around me, but they'd be gone because they got those options to go on placements or to go abroad. And so I was like, I don't think I can come to terms with it. Even though I could have used the money to travel, it just came up to where I was like, I actually feel like I really want to go abroad. And I did, and a separate video is coming out after this about my study abroad year. But yeah, so that was one of the reasons why I decided to leave. Another reason why I decided to leave was obviously I was unhappy with the location, with the other campus being so far. I kind of felt like certain societies and certain clubs I couldn't get involved in because it was so far away. It wasn't practical. I can't finish up a class at a certain time and still have time to get over there, plus study and eat and etc. It just wasn't practical, and I don't feel like they thought about that when they put their campus so far away. I also didn't like the fact that if I'm studying the sports degree, why are most of the sports facilities, other than like we had like one in the area where like the gym or whatever, it was still a walk, it wasn't on campus. But why a majority of the uni's facilities on the Canterbury campus, but you put a sports people on the Medway campus? Don't understand it. Like, don't get me wrong, think it's a great uni, just wasn't for me, so I chose to leave. Okay, so my second year, when I went to the University of Hertfordshire, I was so happy they let me enroll into the second year. I didn't have to start fresh. I was slightly nervous that I would get there and loads of people would have their own friends already and I wouldn't be able to make friends, because you typically make your really tight friends in your first year. But I didn't need to worry. I have a great cohort. Everybody was lovely and welcoming to me, and they understood my reasons for leaving and things. So that was great. I had a great work social life balance. I didn't feel down anymore. I was much happier with the situation. My only slight worry was that I kind of struggled to adjust to the new teaching styles, really, because at Kent I was accustomed to seminars being used as a period of time to go over what you had learnt in the lectures, but in Hertfordshire the way they did it was they used it more as a time to give you new information or expand on the information you got in the lecture. So I kind of felt like if you weren't understanding of what you had learned in the lecture, you would slightly struggle to follow. But I got used to it over time. So that was my only slight concern. But the reasons I picked the University of Hertfordshire is because they provide a great program for the study abroad. They have many places around the world. I went to the US that you can study at, so that was very attractive to me. I like the location. It's not too far out of London, and that was a perk for me because I was a bit concerned that I wouldn't be able to get accommodation, considering I was going into the second year and typically that's the time when people go off campus. But I managed to get accommodation, so I lived in the Bellingham Court townhouse. I lived with 11 other people, so that was nice. I really like where it was located. I could see the library outside of my bedroom window, so it was a great location. That meant I was able to access everything, unlike with Kent where I had to walk and do all of that, and most of the other things that I really wanted to do were on the other campus. I didn't have to worry about that, and I really liked that the other campus was only a 20-minute walk and the shuttle bus was constant back and forth. So that was really ideal for me, and those are the reasons I picked the University of Hertfordshire. As I said before, I did a video already. Well, I've got a video coming out already about my study abroad year, so I'm going to skip over my third year as I wasn't in the UK for it. But for my fourth year, obviously my fourth year was interrupted by COVID, but we'll get to that. So I chose to commute in my fourth year and stay at home. Commuting was interesting. My pocket loved it, but it was a bit of a struggle because I was used to, if I had a 9 a.m. lecture, I'd get up at like close to 9 and then run down the hill when I was on campus, because I'm like, why do I need to be up even earlier than that? But when I was at home, having a 9 a.m. lecture meant I had to leave my house at 7 o'clock. So I had to be up from like 6:45 because I'm always the person who packs their bags, has their clothes out, everything out the night before. So it was literally like get up, do my essentials and leave at 7 on the dot, no later. So I'd make it on time, but I'd always be really early on the other end. I'd get in on campus around before 8:30 with just walking on both sides. I'd probably be faster if I didn't walk. But yeah, so you have that. I had to factor in when it came to commuting. I also had to factor in I had to carry more stuff, which was a bit irritating, carrying more things in, but you got to be prepared for all kinds of weather when you're commuting, because you can't just run to your room and grab a different top or grab a hoodie or something like that. So that was the only downsides to commuting. In hindsight, I'm really glad that I obviously didn't stay on campus and I didn't move out off campus, because I imagine I would have been struggling to get out of a lease with COVID. So glad about those things. For the fourth year, in terms of workload's obviously heavy. I had my dissertation. I had the whole year to do my dissertation. I did a psychology-based dissertation, so I had questionnaires. So I didn't have to worry about going in the lab to get people, so that was a great thing. But still a lot of work I had to do. Had that to do, and on top of other modules and other assessments. It was all about balancing your time correctly and just staying on top of everything. I stayed on top of things pretty well, I think. I stayed pretty well on top of things to the point teachers were like to me, Mariah, go home and have a break. Like, don't touch work. You're allowed a break. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I'll be like, yeah, I'll have a break. And the next thing I'm on a computer. But you got to do what you got to do to make sure you get the good grades, really. But did that in my final year, and then that was the first semester. First semester was fine. I would constantly go in, even on days off, to sit in the library. But I found when COVID hit, it was a bit of a struggle knowing that I couldn't go to the library because I was so accustomed to working on campus. Working from home was a bit of a struggle, just with general distractions and lack of motivation while working at home. So struggled there. And when it came to the exam season, I had already prepared 2 essays for psychology, because in exercise psychology I had to write 2 essays in class, but because of COVID we just did those online. I was fine with that. But I was meant to have 2 other exams, and then the exams was meant to write essays. But in the exam essays, obviously I wasn't aware of the questions, but now it was online, so I was given the questions, which is like, yeah, perk, open book, nice. The only struggle was that I was given a word count, so I felt like I was struggling, because in the exams you're not given word counts. You can write and write and write as long as you have enough time. So I went from having 2 essays to having to write 7 essays. That was the struggle, and that was my crazy uni experience, to be honest. It had a lot of ups and downs, and I wouldn't change a thing. All I can say to like reflect back on it is that it kind of goes to show that for me personally, the name of a university is important, yes, but it doesn't necessarily define if I'm going to be happy where I've been placed. So I won't change the fact that I changed universities, because I ended up much happier, and I think my grades show that as well. So keep an eye out for my transferring video and my study abroad video. But that's all for today. Thank you guys.